Pacers 100, Knicks 106. A tough one for the Pacers. Wrong end of the comeback this time. Their offense dreadful late. They couldn't stop Cat. Their first clutch loss of the playoffs. What just happened? Where do they go from here? In Cambridge Fieldhouse, breaking it all down today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Monday and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today inside Cambridge Fieldhouse, where the Pacers just lost Game 3. This is apparently their worst game every series, 106-100 to the New York Knicks. A lot of alarming things in the second half after what looked like a pleasant, headed for the sky first half. People were texting me, oh my gosh, it's about to be over. And then a faceplant from the Pacers. Offense dies. Starter injured. Karl-Anthony Towns kicks their butt. Tied late, can't get it done in the clutch for the first time the entire playoffs. So many things went wrong in that second half for the Pacers, and have to regroup and figure out, can they win Game 4? The optimist will say, well, the whole playoffs have gone this way. Win games 1 and 2, lose Game 3, win Game 4, and feel great. The pessimist will say, they just lost a clutch game for the first time. Aaron Nesmith just suffered an injury. Karl-Anthony Towns kicked their butt. The Knicks lineup changes were a little bit impactful, and that is why Game 4 will be so important. Let's talk about Game 3. I just spent way too long setting the scene here for a tough one. The story of this game starts in the third quarter. Pacers are up 20 in the first half. Building was rocking after a Tyrese Haliburton jam in transition. Their biggest lead of the game. They were riding high, up 13 going into the third quarter, up 15 late in the third quarter. That is when catastrophe hit them. This bench group to close the third, Rick Carlisle talking about the struggles there, just did not have it going. 78-63 with 3 minutes to go in that quarter after a TJ McConnell pull-up. He was feeling it at that time. Haliburton goes out for Andrew Nembhard with 2:40 to go. Pacers don't have either of their stars on the floor. This has worked for them before, right? The idea being that the starting group can pull them back late in the game. This time, that group with no stars was dreadful. Deuce McBride, quick pull-up. Deuce McBride, quick free throws. Deuce McBride with a 3. It's suddenly an 8-point game. Myles Turner does dunk before the end of the quarter to get it to 10. That stretch was killer. Pacers offense in that time really stalled. They couldn't get anything going. Obi Toppin with a turnover. Tony Bradley with a turnover. That front court pairing was working quite well in the first half. Dreadful in that stretch. TJ McConnell couldn't get a shot off that he got off for much of the game. Mathurin with a turnover. A bunch of possessions ending without a shot is as painful as it can possibly be in that moment. When you're up double digits, have a chance to be up 15 going into the fourth. Instead, it was almost single digits before a nice pass from Mathurin. Then the start of the fourth becomes important. Pacers keep some bench guys out there. They did some subbing. And then it was the Karl-Anthony Towns show. And we'll get to the Karl-Anthony Towns show in a second. But that end of quarter stretch was huge. The Knicks went into the fourth with momentum. That was basically the first stretch of game that Rick Carlisle talked about afterwards. And I understand I have come to the defense of this many a time during this series and throughout the playoffs, even during the Cavs series. People want to groan when these groups are on the floor, right? At the time, I believe it was McConnell, Shepard, Toppin, Bradley, and I can't remember the fifth player. Oh, Mathurin, obviously. Ben Mathurin was there, right? Felt like an okay group, but, with no Siakam, it was tough. They bring Siakam in with 1:39 to go, so it's only 1 minute without him, but that didn't stabilize the offense enough, and the Knicks had already kind of figured some things out with Deuce McBride. The belly aching usually is because that group doesn't feel like it's going to do well, and then in the fourth quarter, the starters come in and recover. This time, the starters didn't do that, and of course, everyone else could and should say the opposite thing, which is, well, if they do better in that stretch, they don't need the starters to come in and do well, and that's also true, right? The rotation reaction is almost always based on result, which to me is unfair. In this game, without Nesmith, you do wonder if they don't have the same fastball from the starters, should they have tried to hit a little bit harder in that stretch process-wise, given that the resources were different? They did not, and it killed them. So that was a very, very huge stretch of the game. Couldn't score and weren't even getting shots up. That's the key part. They didn't even get a shot on the rim. McConnell's shot attempt was blocked and everything else starts going the Knicks' way. The start of the fourth quarter is where this game really started flipping New York's way. It was a 10-point game. Towns for 3, Towns layup, Towns assist Daylon Wright, Towns layup, and Towns 2 foul shots. And then, have you heard his name enough? Towns for 3, Towns dunk. The first 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, the Knicks went from down 70 to 80 to up 86-85 with Towns scoring, or 87-85. He got fouled in the dunk, excuse me. Towns scored or assisted on all 17 points to open the period, and the Pacers scored just 5. They had Nembhard and Siakam and Turner on the floor at that time. Haliburton came in with 10 minutes to go. The starters were on the floor. They got back to the group while leading. That the theory of what they did at the end of the third quarter was to have that group be as fresh as possible to close the game. That group continued to struggle. And we'll talk about a lot of the offensive process stuff, but what happened at the end of the third quarter was a sign of things to come of offensive struggles for the Pacers, who just never, ever recovered from what they were doing there, and their defense on Cat never got better. Brunson was off the floor. You wonder if they should have, and I think they should have, started to double him when he got really going. They never did. And the rest of the guys on the floor were playing fine. Deuce McBride was getting some stuff really clicking. Delon Wright was playing okay, right? Josh Hart was out there making his plays on the glass mostly. Landry Shamet was out there, right? A lot of stuff was working for the Knicks there, but without Brunson on the floor, who came in with like 7 minutes to go, a little over that. You wonder if the Pacers should have started doubling Cat earlier when he was rolling to start the frame. Regardless, that hurt them, and they still clawed back and tied it a couple times, tied at 90 with 5:46 to go, tied at 94, 96. I can't remember the next time the Pacers tied it. 98 with 1:37 to go. So you could even point to the last 97 seconds as a problematic stretch for the Pacers, who give up a Brunson bucket. And oh, by the way, tied at 98, the Pacers only scored 2 points the rest of the way. They couldn't quite get the shots that they needed. They couldn't get stops at all. Josh Hart free throws that nobody loved on that board. Regardless, they missed a Turner tough 3 late in the clock. It took 15 seconds, or took almost 20 seconds to get to it. Nesmith misses a floater after turning down an open 3, right? I'm getting ahead of myself by getting to the end of the game. Towns was a huge problem. That was the best sequence he's had all series, and that was after a fourth quarter that he didn't play. Tibbs opted for much more Mitchell Robinson at the end of game 2 because of his impact. Cat showed this time why he should be on the floor very often, especially in those no Brunson minutes, especially with a big on him. Those are the kind of lineups that other teams have shown a willingness to put a wing on him or a forward on him instead of a center to make it a little harder on him with the lowest center of gravity guys. Cat can post up those guys, but it clogs up the lane in a way that has deterred the Knicks. The Pacers did not do that, even with Josh Hart on the floor, and Cat just ran through them. So those were 2 huge stretches, the end of the third and that Karl Towns stretch. And I've kind of strayed off into the rest of the problems. But the first question I had for every single person we could talk to post-game, I talked to obviously all the guys on the podium, which was Haliburton, Siakam, and Rick Carlisle, but also Andrew Nembhard. The Knicks scored 36 in the fourth quarter. That's bad. Their defense was bad on Cat. We just went through that. The Pacers scored 42 the entire second half. Like, that's a 6-point difference from, again, just the Knicks' fourth quarter. They absolutely had to find a better offensive process in those third and fourth quarters and couldn't do it. And so you can and should talk about the end of the third quarter stretch as bad process from the Pacers, regardless of who's on the floor, right? That lineup has done well enough. I'm sorry my camera's so rattly. My computer's in a kind of a goofy spot. They should have done better with that group. But even the starter groups, even groups with more effective offensive creators, just were not effective in that second half at all. And their offense really, really stalled. And any time a team scores just 106 in a game, the Pacers should win, especially at the offensive level they've been at since the in-season tournament. Instead, they did not win that game, and their second half offense was a huge part of why. Lineups be danged, they couldn't do anything. And some will, I think, kind of lazily say, oh, they were 2 for 12 on threes. Yeah, they didn't get good looks, right? None of the threes I thought were particularly awesome. None of them were bad. Like, I don't think the Pacers really take bad shots outside of late in clocks, but none of them were great. Haliburton missing 4, Turner missing 3, in the second half. Turner missing 4. That's 7 of their 10 misses between those two guys. They just couldn't get the shots they wanted. And it took them forever to get into these plays, which was shocking to see. And that was a big problem that a lot of guys pointed to post-game, was the pace of their offense. It took them a long time to get flowing and moving and passing the way they want, right? When they're at their best, talked about it all season. Everybody knows it. It's so obvious. They pass a lot. They get into the paint a lot. They're moving, they're flowing, they're cutting, boom, boom, this guy. And it takes a team effort to do those things. And they lost Aaron Nesmith, and we'll get to that later. That's not really what caused this to me. Like, Shepherd's had an okay series. They just couldn't play that way. They just weren't. And I don't even think the Knicks necessarily did anything drastic in terms of changes defensively to lead that. It's not that they did nothing. Every team's adjusting all the time. But, the credit to the Knicks. The Cat was amazing. They did a lot of stuff to come out of this with a win. But the offensive process for the Pacers was just kind of icky. late in that game with the pace, with the ball movement that they, are so desperate to get going correctly. And it kind of goes on everybody. And Tyrese Haliburton put it on himself. Pace was a huge topic post game. James Boyd is trying to avoid me recording this podcast so you guys can watch him walk behind me in just a second. James, why do you think the pace was not there in that second half?
I think Tyrese Haliburton probably could have played a little bit better. Obviously, yes. I think it was 2 assists, in the second half. And I think if he's not getting the offense humming, then it's hard for the other guys to get involved as well.
Yeah, I thought not passing out of too many drives. Thank you, James, for your brief guest appearance. Passing out of too many drives. Shots that they typically like, shoot over bigs. That's the second thing I asked Haliburton post-game. The threes were not the quality they want. And you can just tell with the Pacers' offensive flow, right? It felt a little lazy doing this during the season. But when the Pacers were really improving after the in-season tournament, something I kept saying was their defense is better. And I could find some stats to tell you, but you could just see it. And their offense got better slowly as guys got back from injury as well. In this game, you could just see the opposite. Their flow wasn't there. The passing wasn't at the level it needed to be. Guys were not cutting or moving at the tempo that they're accustomed to. And that's why in the second half, one player shot 50% from the field. It was Siakam, and he was 5 for 8. Over 50%, I should say. He had 13 points. He was good. He was also minus 19 because he got caught in some bad lineups. It's not on him. He was punishing smalls. Aaron Nesmith, he gets a pass. He was injured, but still was 1 for 4. Myles Turner was 2 for 7, albeit 4 of those misses were from 3, and he had trouble with Cat. Not a good half for Myles Turner. Andrew Nembhard missed all 4 of his shots, Toppin 1 for 3. McConnell, after a great first half, 1 for 3. No other bench players took a shot. They couldn't get good looks. They passed out of drives they don't like. Their tempo and pace wasn't there, and this was compounded by Towns going crazy. And those are related things. Let's talk about that coming up here on Locked On Pacers. Before we do that, let's talk about Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That is where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When many people start using Monarch, they realize just how much they're spending on things like food delivery. Now they budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner, smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off of your first year. Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. If you're listening on Memorial Day, even after Memorial Day, thanks for tuning in on your time off or waiting till after your time off and still checking back in. No one likes listening to these after losses, but you got to break them down. They're just as important in the playoffs. Pacers sticking to the script. Win 2, lose 1, win 2, right? We'll see. Game 4, obviously huge. I mentioned that to Gavin Shaw on our crossover, which leads me to my second point. Listen to Locked On Knicks next. Hear what they have to say about this game, this Towns explosion. How did these lineup changes play into things? Just a lot went wrong. To kind of tie a bow on. I was about to combine two phrases. All the stuff I just explained about the second half, tough play for the Pacers. We have seen, especially in the Cavs series, but for the Pacers, the snowball effect of these things. You hear me talk about it so much, and how they're in tandem. In a lot of games where they're kind of getting stuffed by a defense for whatever reason, it just continues to snowball where they can't score. So the other team's getting down the floor with either matchups they like or speed that they like, and so that team can score more easily. And so they can set that defense that's giving the Pacers problems. And I don't think the Knicks defense was like particularly tricky in the second half, although they were getting the Pacers to matchup hunt way more than they should ever want to, right? A lot of those coming in that second half, but it just felt like that kept going and going, where it was Karl Towns, especially in the fourth. Karl Towns scores or sets up a score. Pacers can't score against a set defense. Cat comes down the floor. They're scrambling to find him. Someone's not guarded by their normal guy. Cat setting a screen. Cat's open. Cat scoring. And it just kept going and going and going. The way the Pacers play, they're such a rhythm team. They're so fast. They want to, run up the floor a billion miles per hour, and they want to find these ways and cracks in a defense to score. All that's great. All that works very well for them. They're 2 wins potentially from a trip to the finals because their system is very good. The Knicks also are good and have a good system. And in that particular half, that snowball effect really favored the Knicks, slowing it down and making it happen. The other thing that happened in this game was, in a way, very frustrating to fans, but in a way got the game kind of helping for the Knicks. And I'm not saying this is a good thing for the Knicks long term. Jalen Brunson and Karl Towns had lots of fouls, and a lot of people immediately go, they should have attacked them more. And like, I don't necessarily think that's a thing. Like, teams just switch guys off of matchups all the time. And if you want to say keep going to it until you can, like, yeah, you could try forever, but they're just not going to foul. And they're still good players, and they get taken off the floor a lot. Brunson barely plays in the second half. He comes in late in the fourth quarter and hits a huge clutch shot, obviously, when he got the fifth foul. Towns was dealing with 4. And like, you can go at them. I'm not saying it's not a thing. I think it's a very overstated thing with the way the NBA is played and how coaches kind of handle those situations now. Regardless of my opinions on those things, those guys getting into foul trouble kind of actually forced the Knicks to play depth. And one, that depth was pretty good. You know, Landry Shamet made some shots in the first half. Dalen Wright was like pesky. Deuce McBride just been good in the whole series. He was plus 12 in the second half. Josh Hart was playing great too. He's not a depth guy, but he came off the bench in this game. And so relying on that depth really gave the Knicks some burst, some surge, some pop, some zing, whatever word you want to use, in a way that they haven't typically had late in these games. And those guys were actually causing defensive problems. And that's the second thing I would say was good for the Knicks about being forced to sub because of foul trouble. Brunson's amazing. Brunson's a clear, huge positive in this series, right? He still played 13 minutes in the second half and was plus 9 and had 12 points. Like, I'm really like overstating this, but like there were a lot of lineups where he wasn't out there. It was like McBride, Hart, one of the defensive wings, and Cat or Mitchell Robinson. And those groups were just better on defense, right? And that gave the Pacers just enough fits. And the Knicks got enough offense from just Cat. They didn't need other offensive guys on the floor. That was a big part of this too. The foul trouble actually in some ways helped them get to lineups that typically you wouldn't think of as being really successful, but were in this game. I thought that was really significant for the Knicks in a way you don't expect. And so the Pacers got to go back to the drawing board. What happened in this half, right? Because no one was so exceptional for the Knicks. Deuce McBride, 2 for 6. Dalen Wright takes 1 shot. Brunson, 4 for 9 with 12 points. That's still very good. He had 2 turnovers. Mikal Bridges, 3 for 8. Anunoby made both of his threes. He was huge in this game. It was really Cat just kicking their butts. 20 points in just 1 quarter and 9 rebounds. That's his second half stats. And the Pacers win the rebounding battle and lose the game. So the opposite is true of last series. The team that's won the rebounding battle has lost every game in the series. That's just a fun fact that has no relation to what actually happened in the game. Regardless, you can really get the scene of what happened in this game. A lot of very connected little things ended up amounting to a big thing that helped the Knicks break up the rhythm of the game, make it their tempo, and took the Pacers out of what they want to do. And a lot of guys can finger point at themselves for those issues. Tyrese Haliburton did it after the game. Very, very much looked in the mirror and said, my bad kind of guy. And he wouldn't get into specifics. He would. The Pacers are not giving up any strategy in media in this series. They're doing very well, I think, to do that. It makes it harder for me to do these podcasts without inserting my own opinion a lot. But Tyrese Haliburton after the game pointed the finger at himself for not getting the pace going the way the Pacers want to. I thought, and this is why I asked him this, and I already mentioned this, that he was passing out of a lot of drives, and like there's a backline, Mitchell Robinson back there some of the times. There's some size for the Knicks, but take it to the cup. And if you can't, because there's a big guy there, at least take one more dribble towards that guy, right? Make the rotation take a little longer. Obviously, he's farther away from the three-point line then, but I think that can go well for the Pacers in doing that. And they didn't get as much rim pressure as they like from other guys. Nembhard, he was over 3 on threes, but he was also 2 for 6 on twos. Aaron Nesmith was 1 for 5 on twos. And he had a floater late that would have tied the game that I thought was a shot that he's made and worked on this season, but in an injured moment where he just passed up a better open 3 was a big part of that as well. He did some other things well in this game, but having him chase around Brunson and try to do things at all during this game while he's banged up and hurt, again, we'll get to that in the third segment, tough. So the Pacers up 20, first half, feeling awesome. At half up 16, the building's rocking. Indy 500 was early in the day. So many reasons for them to feel good. And the Knicks just snatched their soul. And it's the first clutch loss for the Pacers in the playoffs. I'll be very curious with that magic shift there, how that changes the Pacers. I'm not saying it should. I think their process will be the same. The 2 game threes they lost, they just got their butt kicked before this series. They're playing well against the Knicks. They have won twice. They were up 20 in this game. But a bad pocket, one bad half. Their one worst half of the series by a mile. How much does that define where they go next? Their superpower, the entire playoffs, the entire series, honestly, for years with this team, they're great on back-to-backs, has been this part of a series, adjusting. What went wrong? How do they not let it happen again? What needs to happen to be better in the game so that the 20-point half, 20-point half can happen twice in a row, right? In theory, there's a world where they win this game by 30+ if they can continue to play that way. It's not that easy. They've got to look in the mirror and figure out how to keep their offensive pace, how to slow down Cat, especially when he's the lone guy out there. What was changed about these Knicks rotations that actually gave them fits? Or was it just all the fouls, forcing Tibbs to play all these guys? Can they get Nembhard or Nesmith going more significantly than they did in this game? How do they keep their offensive flow going when the Knicks are willing to switch and they don't want to mismatch Hunt? Because I thought they did a little bit of that and it slowed down their offensive pace. I can't wait to see the numbers. They're not quite in the place I used to look at offensive seconds per possession. What do they need to do differently with their bench, right, in terms of who's out there with who? It was a little different again in this game. Some of that because of an Aaron Nesmith injury. Some of that because Ben Shepherd was the first guy off the bench and Ben Mathurin didn't come in until early in the second quarter. So many things for them to ask questions about and figure out in the next game. Why are they still putting Mitchell Robinson in ball screens? I could keep going and going. Regardless, they have to figure this stuff out, and they might have to do it without one Aaron Nesmith. We'll see. He did return, but so much to discuss with his injury, what the Pacers must improve in the next game. And, hey, they got a 20-point lead. What they do well that they can try to do again? Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Hop on over to Locked On Wolves or Locked On Thunder. They play tonight for your second listen to get a feel for what's going on in that series. Similar vibes there. Thunder win games 1 and 2. Wolves roll in game 3. What's going to happen in game 4 in Minneapolis? We will see. Let's keep it going here on Locked On Pacers. Big moment in the game. Aaron Nesmith driving from the baseline, lands on a Knicks player that's name is escaping me right now, rolls his ankle bad, tough, immediate pain, reaching down for it. It looked scary the way he was reaching at first. It wasn't the scary thing. It was just an ankle turn. 6 minutes and 6 seconds to go in the third quarter when this happens. Pacers up 13 at the time. They actually held that lead about that mark for like 3 more minutes. But it's still a huge thing. Not that they lost some of the lead there, but just they couldn't go back to Nesmith as early. He was in the back doing his testing, riding the stationary bike, trying to stay on his feet and move. He comes out in uniform, and he was listed questionable. When you come out in uniform, I usually think, okay, maybe there's a chance he can return. But he just didn't quite have the same, you could see it, right? The same level of impact in that second half. He comes into the fourth, goes 0 for 3 in 7 minutes, lose those minutes by 5 and a 6-point loss. I'm not putting that on Aaron Nesmith. In fact, it's very noble that he fought through this injury. They would have had to ride Ben Shepherd a ridiculous amount. And I wondered if they'd go to Mathurin more. Like, you can all see it. Like, some of it's on the Pacers, some of it's on Ben Mathurin. He just has not played well in the series, and one that people thought, including me, that he would have a stronger impact than this. This is the kind of game he can thrive when it's a little slower and gookier, and he just couldn't quite find the ways. I thought he had some nice passes, but his defense hasn't been there either. They need more from him. I think he knows it, but it's hard to get the rhythm for him when he's playing less. It's a kind of a chicken and egg situation there. Does he earn more minutes because he plays well, or does he need to play well to earn more minutes? When Shep's defending okay and running around and making shots, it probably should be Shep in this series, but it's been tough for Mather, and I totally understand that that's a hard situation for him. I thought he might do a little bit more in this game than he ended up doing. It's just been the Pacers' pace is so important in this that it's really hard when he's not giving them that, even though he has a lot of clear things he can do to help them. Regardless of those specific decisions, Nesmith's injury, huge issue in this game. And after the game, we could see him in the locker room moving a bit. Not a perfect gait, certainly. Was certainly not putting weight on that ankle. I believe it was the opposite one. I think he had the left ankle during the season when he missed a ton of time. Right ankle today. On one hand, it's easy to say, well, he came back in and played. Optimistic for the next game. It's the playoffs. And on the other hand, you just never know when you see a guy limping a little bit, how it's going to respond and swell up the way ankle sprains do. It's Aaron freaking Nesmith. The guy told us a couple weeks ago in Milwaukee he would die for basketball. He would die for the game. He would die for his team. He is going to play if he can. Ankle sprains, especially grade 2s, can take like a couple weeks. Like the finals, should the Pacers make it, they can't get ahead of themselves. They still have 2 more wins to get. Don't start for like 8 to 10 days. I can't quite remember the first day. It's in June. Like, in theory, closing it out today could have been, or closing things out quicker could have been huge. They lost this one now. They got to figure out if he's healthy. They got to figure out how much he can give. He, again, was not as good as he can be in the second half. And the key part of this to me is not anything I just said. The key part of this to me is he's their Brunson defender. If he is not as shifty, if he is not as quick, that is a massive, massive shift in what the Pacers can do defensively and how they'll have to line up to start games. Would they switch back to Nembhard? Would they try Nesmith? Or is he just going to be barbecue chicken because he's too slow? Can he play at all? Right? These are huge questions. But that is, to me, why this is such a big injury. Not necessarily because they lost this game because of it or not because of it, but because he has a huge role. And he obviously was shooting the snot out of the ball in New York, but he's defending Jalen Brunson. Huge injury for the Pacers if he has to miss time or if he's even limited in any way, which you have to imagine he's going to be. Massive injury. That was tough for the Pacers to see. We'll know more tomorrow, hopefully. At Pacers practice, we will know more at least. Some stats that jump out. Pacers, points off turnovers. They did very well in that category, but the turnover battle was not as strong as it needed to be. They couldn't get out and run as much as they needed. 14 turnovers for the Knicks, 12 for the Pacers. They got to take care of the ball a little bit better. They've done well at that in their best moments, the second half of game 2, much of game 1, but not there today, despite their ability to actually take advantage of those chances, right? They were flying in the fast breaks. They just couldn't quite get that speed going in that second half. That's what I was talking about. The bench points gap narrowed as the Knicks went deeper into their bench and got good enough play from a lot of those guys. Second chance points went to New York, though, despite the rebounding battle going the Pacers' way. Points in the paint went the Knicks' way. That's how they made up for a lot of stuff. And they shot it way better from deep. And this is what the optimist would say. 5 for 25 were the Pacers from deep in this game. That's dreadful. If they go 7 for 25, that's still under 30%. They're tied. And it's not a variance thing. I don't think they got good shots in this game. It was hard for them to get shots at all. They had a lot of late clock shots, right? This is not I'm getting sick of the word variance. Not a variance thing. They just got to generate better threes. And they were kicking it out almost too much, but they weren't quality looks. Credit to the Knicks for taking the Pacers out of their 3-point game in this one. 5 for 25, though. Dreadfully bad. The Knicks didn't even shoot that well. They were 11 for whatever. They ended up taking 34.4%. Like, they can shoot better than that. Anunoby was great. Towns was pretty good. Nobody else was exceptional from deep for the Knicks. So still a lot that could shift from the three-point arc. Pacers have got to find a way to generate better threes in the next game, which comes Tuesday night. Big one for the Pacers. Are they going to be up 3-1, chance to close it out in New York? Are they going to have to rely on Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Game 6 to potentially win or get ahead in a series? That's why Tuesday is so critical. They did have an awesome first half, and that's what they can take out of this game going, if we just do that again, we can win. And they didn't do that again, and they can't think that. They cannot think we can win because they didn't do those things. First half of the game, Pacers shot 51%. They shot 23% from deep in the first half, or up 13 at halftime and up 20 at times because they're moving the ball really well. They had 23 assists. They were excellent inside the arc, 17 for 26 on twos in that half. They only had 4 turnovers in the first half, 8 in the second half. They made their free throws. Their defense was better. Like, they did a lot of stuff very well in that half of the game, and it felt like such a their tempo game. They started off pretty slow, right? They were losing early. They really got it ramped up in that second quarter when their lead got to 20. They felt like they were on top of the world. Lobs to Obi Toppin in the open floor. Tyrese Haliburton's dunking in transition. The crowd is hype. The Indy 500 winner is shown on the floor. I'm not saying his name because I don't know how to pronounce it. I know his first name is Alex. Just like an incredible atmosphere moment. Loud building. They had a chance to potentially close out the series. Not quite, but go up 3-0. They were playing that way, and they couldn't get back to it for a million reasons. A starter got hurt. They couldn't make threes or generate good threes. They were not shooting enough in the paint. They did not get enough from their role players. Their bench left a lot to be desired to close the third. Their starters left a lot to be desired to open the fourth. Their pace wasn't there. They had no answer or adjustment for Towns. Even tied with 97 seconds to go, they could not get enough stops. They had a crucial foul on a free throw. They didn't make any shots late besides just one. Just so many things went wrong. They've been so good at seizing these opportunities throughout the postseason. Today, they did none of those things that have made them so special, seizing those chances. Their first clutch loss, credit to the Knicks. These two teams both have multiple 20-point comebacks in the playoffs. No lead is safe in this series. The Pacers will try to regroup and make themselves have a safe lead that they can hold for a win in Game 4. They kicked the Cavs' butts in this building in Game 4. They'll try to do it again Tuesday night. I'll be there. I plan on being in New York for Game 5. We'll see how this series continues to shift, where every game gets more important than the last. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching today. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Tony R. Reese, where you can see my scattered thoughts throughout a game. This podcast is on Instagram at Locked On Pacers and Twitter at Locked On Pacers. Back tomorrow talking more Game 3, heading into Game 4 with a guest, presumably. I need to be hunting who that could be. It's Memorial Day. I hope people are available on the holiday. Thank you all so much for listening and watching. We will see you very soon.